Good morning, London. How are we this morning? Recovered from the party? Yeah, good. Good to hear. So we have a slightly different turn to today's events. We are going to talk today not about open source per se, but about AI. And as we look to AI, we've had a kind of roller coaster of a couple of years in AI. I think we look back to February, March 23, when we saw ChatGPT-4, I don't know if Matt Barker's in the room yet, but ChatGPT-4 sort of hit, and Matt Barker started messaging me going, oh my God, it's AI. And very shortly after that, we saw a shift, and the shift came about because Meta's Llama was licensed, on a license to enable it to be used by researchers, and somehow it was leaked. Who knows how it was leaked, but somehow it was leaked. And although that doesn't make it open source, sorry, can we have one conversation? So somehow that became open source by any other name and accessible to the open communities. And by being accessible to the open communities, what that did was enable a pace of innovation that had been unseen in AI to that point in time. So between February, March, when we saw that leak, and May, the transcendence of open innovation and development around AI was such that by May, when a memo was leaked at Google's headquarters, now that's not Google's opinion, that's the opinion of one individual, and it was leaked, it said we have no moat. And when they said we have no moat, what they were really saying is that we cannot use our intellectual property to protect us. We cannot surround our castle with intellectual property to stop the open communities from competing with us to the extent that we are not going to be able to sell our finesse products. The scale of open innovation was so great that they just could not compete, and they knew it. Now, shortly after that, in July 23, OpenUK supported Meta in the launch of Llama 2. And we were the only open source organization that did it, a bit controversial, but OpenUK isn't just an open source organization. We're only 5 years old, and we're about open technology. And we're about open technology because we knew in 2020 what the rest of the world is picking up today, that you cannot look at something in isolation from a software perspective today. You need to think about hardware. You need to think about data. You need to think about standards. And our sort of foresight in doing that, and it wasn't just mine, it was my whole board's, that foresight is really seeing what AI is becoming today. So we supported Meta right up to the 23rd of July when they launched Llama 2 on the Llama community license. I reviewed the license, I reviewed the AUP in advance. I knew there was a restriction. I knew that the Llama community license has a restriction. When you hit 700 million users, you have to go and you have to get yourself a commercial license. Now, who knows what those terms are? I don't think anybody's hit 700 million users. I don't think anybody's got it yet. But that means that it's not open source. Now, why does it mean it's not open source? So fundamentally, in the open source definition, definitions 5 and 6 say that anybody can use the code for any purpose, right? Anyone. Now, that doesn't mean it's above the law. That's the license. So if somebody is going to use it in an illegal way, that's not on. They have to comply with law. They have to comply in law in the place of usage. When you look at what Llama was doing, it was a shift, in my view and my board's view, and I was supporting them in the right direction, but it was open innovation. And it was carefully described as open innovation up to that point. On the Facebook release, the launch, Mark Zuckerberg called it open source, and from that point onwards, we've had a war about what open source means. Now, I don't want to spend the whole day talking about that because I think it's kind of done. We've talked about it so much. And there's so much more that's really interesting to talk about. And in a couple of minutes, I'm going to bring up to the stage some of the best speakers in open source to talk about that. Now, post-Llama, what we've seen is this open washing and this debate about what open source means. But we've also seen fantastic leaps and bounds. And those fantastic leaps and bounds have taken us to a point where on Friday, I don't know if you all saw this, we had a statement on Reddit from Sam Altman. And what Sam Altman said, I have to say, I absolutely agree with, which is that OpenAI, in his view, his personal view, is on the wrong side of history. So he also went on to say, that he thinks they need to change their strategy on open weights. He said that this is not a high priority for them and that not everybody in the company agrees with them. But what you have is the CEO of OpenAI publicly acknowledging that open source is the right strategy in AI.